Hello and welcome to First Flight, a Star Trek Enterprise rewatch podcast where we are watching and discussing each episode of Enterprise in succession. First Flight is a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions Network.
This is Commander Tucker of Enterprise. We've got some information you're going to want to hear.
Welcome, Enterprise fans. I'm your co-host, Chris.
And I'm your co-host, Abby.
And tonight we are discussing The Crossing, the 18th episode of Season 2. The Crossing had a story by Rick Berman, Brandon Braga, and Andre Bormanis, and was directed by David Livingston. Classic. It aired on April 2nd, 2003, 20 years ago.
Yep.
But before we begin our discussion, we need to issue a read alert.
Tactical alert. All hands to stations.
There are potential spoilers ahead. We might end up talking about any part of the series at any time, so you have been warned. And now for a summary of the episode, it's time for the captain's log. Okay, Abby, let's go.
Captain Starlog Supplemental.
All right, so I have to say that this haiku log came to me much quicker than the other ones, at least the first two parts. And then the last one, I had to finagle a little bit. But I liked that I didn't have to use many names in this one because they seem to take up an extra lot of syllables.
Was it like you were suddenly in the body of a poet?
Perhaps it was.
You just were suddenly living that experience? Yeah.
Yes, back with my Japanese paintbrush. And then I was eating the biggest mound of sushi. I've never seen so much sushi in my whole life. That would actually be something I would want to do. I adore sushi. But, all right, on that note, here is my haiku for The Crossing. Wisps force essence swaps. Open minds, but cautious acts. Blocks kills, then saves all.
Yeah.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah, there's not much to it. So I think it can work in a haiku.
I think it can too. It's distilled well.
Yes. All right, well, I think it's time to deploy our subspace amplifiers and get into this episode. We'll start with a quick chat about the cold open and then head into our pros and decons section. Each of us will share 3 of our favorite parts of the episode. And then if there are things that don't quite gel with us, we'll have a discussion on any decons from the episode. You might hear a dog bark in this discussion if somebody's Porthos Pick is mentioned, but we'll still discuss them all later on.
All right, so let's get into this episode. And as always, we start with that part I love so much, the cold open. And this one's kind of a fun one. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on how this episode starts?
Well, like a lot of Enterprise episodes lately, it starts in media res, where it's just in the middle of the action.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how they're being swallowed by this starship, and it's not in the Vulcan database. That's exciting. And immediately, I had no memory of this episode. So I'm watching it. I just remembered it was like possession. We're possessed by some aliens. I'm like, But when I was watching this, I was just totally engaged in the size of that alien starship.
Yeah.
And the interior design of it reminded me a lot of like a mini V'ger, and I loved it.
Oh.
It also made me think about the Voth from Distant Origin, and how huge that ship is, that city ship, and Voyager being inside it. That always fascinated me. And so automatically I was completely pulled in, which is what a good cold open does. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like this cold open. This is so fun when you see a ship dwarfed by another ship in Trek, and they don't use it very often, so you like remember it when you do. Like I'm thinking in Prodigy, where you are suddenly up
Mm.
against the Dauntless and you realize how tiny the protostar is, or when you see the Enterprise D fly up to that Borg nexus that's hidden in the Jupiter's eye, you're just like, oh,
Mm.
or in Nemesis with the scimitar being so big, and you think about these things like that, and that the size is so massive it almost doesn't compute. And then you can see Archer going, well, this is a new one. I didn't think my entire ship would ever be swallowed up. And I also like how we come right into it. Like, we hit the ground running, and up until you hear those first Faith of the Heart notes,
Mm.
it's going. It's keeping
Mm-hmm.
you in. So this is not one where you lose people over the commercial break.
Definitely not.
All right, so I think we've got some other fun things to talk about with this episode. So, what is your first pro tonight, Chris?
All right. Well, the whole mess hall scene with the Wisp,
Yeah.
with Trip in Trip's body, that whole scene is fantastic. I was just eating up every line. The whole performance was really well done. And I think I've said in the past, I don't like possession episodes when some of the crew are taken over by alien, entities. There's a few exceptions. But for the most part, I just don't like them because I'm spending time with not our characters. And I want to spend time with the characters. But I was totally 1000% in this scene because of Connor Trinneer's performance, but also just there was a lot of ideas going on, a lot of potential for where this story was going, that this could be a positive encounter
Yeah.
between these very different species and our species, and that they're trying to like explore their past selves because they've evolved right into this non-corporeal form. So I found that to be really interesting. I also loved when Trip says, Commander Charles Tucker III. Malcolm gives this amazing scowl.
Yes, he
It
does.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, that happens a lot. Malcolm is always just in the background reacting,
Yes.
and his reactions are the best. I wonder if they're
Yeah.
scripted. They're probably not, but they're really good.
Well, and they're so deeply Malcolmy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a good choice that Dominic Keating makes with those, because they're so in character, and you see them change from person to person. Like, this is because Trip is not only his commander, he's his buddy. Like, they've
Yeah.
been through stuff, so he's up there going, yeah, security of the ship is my primary focus, but you also got my friend, so don't even. And later on, you see the same back from Trip to Malcolm when he's worried about,
Yeah.
how he's got them, and are we going to get Malcolm back? Yeah. But this scene, you're right. Like, do you have more, or do I get to give my spiel?
I have one more thing.
Go for it.
Yeah, I love the kind of one of the last lines that alien possessed Trip says. He says, "You say you are an explorer.
Yeah.
Open your mind." And I
Yeah.
thought that was what the episode was going to be about.
I wish it was.
But let's hear. I want to hear what you have to say about this scene. Is this one of your pros?
It was on my list. I'm glad
Okay.
you picked it because, okay, first of all, let's get out of the way. I totally freeze framed the food. This is what Trip was eating. And later on, I'm going to come back to the amount of food he's eating here. So just, pin this in your brain a little bit with people out there. So
Okay.
he had spaghetti and meatballs. It looked like Parmesan cheese on top. A hot dog with cheese, ketchup, and pickle on the side. So all our friends at Open Pike who now say that Kirk eats hot dogs the right way without toppings, sorry guys. Um, Broccoli, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, a green salad with cucumbers, tomatoes, and onion, banana pudding, which is like the bananas, whipped cream cookies, bananas, whipped cream cookies,
Mm.
white bread, orange juice, tomato juice, breadsticks, a red cabbage slaw. And there was something I couldn't quite tell what it was. It looked like some sort of like hashy vegetable thing. So, holy cow, I appreciate the diversity there, and that vegetables were well represented without being T'Pol's sad Play-Doh veggies. So, bravo, Dorothy Duder, on that one. But besides the fact that the food is epically awesome, this is such a cool conversation. And yes, I wish this is the way the episode had gone. I wish that this was the direction, because it was Archer going, I don't know, I'm not sure, and Trip was really into it. Like, they picked a good person to be the first person they went into. How would this have been so different if they had picked somebody else on the away team? I mean, Trip was probably the most sweet spot for them as an entry point to the ship.
Mm.
And that was, you look back now and you go, oh, I bet that was deliberate. But wow, what a cool episode this could have been if they had honestly really been just trying to study their ancestors in the past, and maybe had found out that it wasn't as easy. After so many repeated crossings, there were issues with the brains or something. They could have taken this in a totally different direction. But this scene is still so hopeful and open, and it's very,
New.
yeah, new and honest and almost like juvenile, like they're emerging into something. And the wonder about the bread, it's just so
Yes.
well done by Connor Trinneer. It's gorgeous. And I felt like it was a phonics discussion when he's going wisp, wisp, and he's popping the peas. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you could call it that. Like, they were really exchanging things there. And T'Pol reacts one way, Archer reacts another way, and then Reed reacts a third way. And all of them are reacting differently, and all of them are showing concern for Trip at the same time. And it's just a cool scene. So I'm so glad you picked it.
Well, and I just have to say, like, you expressed in one word how I felt about that scene that I couldn't figure out how to say.
Oh,
Wonder.
oh
It was
yeah.
a scene of wonder.
Yeah.
And it's something Star Trek needs so badly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, well said.
Commander?
Commander Charles Tucker III.
Hungry?
Yes, it's all very good. Have you ever tried this?
It's called bread. You've never eaten it before?
I've never eaten anything before.
Where's Commander Tucker?
I'm here. Charles Tucker III.
Where's the man who used to be Charles Tucker?
He's exploring another realm. My realm. But he'll be back.
I want him back now.
Please trust me. He's experiencing things he never thought he could.
Where is he?
It's not a question of where. He's no longer corporeal. But he will be again, I assure you.
When we were outside, we saw a wisp of vapor penetrate him. Did you have anything to do with that?
Wisp. An interesting word. Wisp. Wisp. Yes, I suppose you could call us that. Wisp.
Where do you come from?
We live in subspace. We travel through it. We're explorers like you.
Why did you take Commander Tucker?
It's been a long time since we've encountered corporeal beings. After we performed the first crossing with your commander, we realized we were compatible. You're very interesting. Trapped in bodies that need maintenance. You have gender. You require mates to reproduce. You eat food. We were like you once, but we evolved. Now we can learn how our ancestors lived.
I want my crewmen, and I want my ship released.
Captain.
Your crewmen will be returned. You claim to be an explorer, Captain. Open your mind to new possibilities.
All right. So what was your first pro?
Okay, so my first pro, and this is funny because it's another good segue here, is you spoke about how we had such a good performance from Connor Trenier in this scene when he was wisped, taken over, possessed, whatever we want to call it.
Wisped. I
want to
like
put
that. He's
wisped,
wispy
yeah,
trip.
wispy trip. There we go. But I wanted to call out that we see some other amazing performances of people when they're taken over that are very different, like creepy Malcolm and creepy Hoshi.
Mm,
I hate them. I don't like how they
yep.
make me feel. I don't
Yep.
like the way they look at me. I don't, they
Mm-hmm.
make my skin crawl, but they're supposed to. So
Mm-hmm.
the acting for both of them, especially like Malcolm, we don't actually see him get wisped. Like, I'm sure that was just to save money on the effects budget, but like you see he's walking down the hallway and all of a sudden he stops and it goes from his boots up
Mm-hmm.
and his face is just that little bit different. And
Mm-hmm.
Dominic Keating has that like little curl of his upper lip that he does again later when they're in the mirrored universe. It just makes him look mean, nefarious, like, ugh.
My note calls him Rapey Reed, because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
Rapey Reed right there,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, and it's not the first time that we have had Star Trek or science fiction or anyone try to explore what it would be like if, suddenly you have to talk about gender or sexuality or physical bodies and stuff like that. It's just it's so icky. And
Oh,
Hoshi, oh, like
oh,
that's bone chilling when she's just staring at Phlox not talking.
I just watched The Enemy Within
Mm.
for the first time in a while, and man, evil Kirk with
Yeah.
Yeoman Rand. It was like, why did I put these almost back to back?
Yeah.
I think I
That's
did
a
watch
lot.
it day by, one day and then the next day, and I was like, wow, these are really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
These poor actors having to do this.
I know. I
I
know.
didn't like that. Luckily, Reed's wasn't as bad, but yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it shows the acting depth of
Hmm.
these people. I mean, they instantly turned it. And Hoshi, from being nervous but containing it and being professional to like, yeah, we're gonna take you out. Just stay here. Like we're coming for all of you. And then attacking Phlox, like that was, whew, they both did a phenomenal job. And I appreciate when it's the physicality. Like they don't have to speak for
Hmm.
you to know, and
Hmm.
that is incredibly good acting. We talk about face acting all the time, but that whole physical presence, how they carry themselves, it doesn't take but a split second to know, and that is great performance work.
Well, and these, starting with Trip in the mess hall scene, these wisps seem to be leaning into the physical experience of the human condition with the
Hmm.
food. And then Reed, Star Trek explores a lot of the positive characteristics of the human condition. That Reed wisp is really leaning into the other darker sides of ourselves
Hmm.
that aren't actually explored much in Trek. So I think there is something valuable there. I just didn't like it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the performances, back to your point, were very well done and arresting.
Yes. Yes, it's one of those, we talk a lot about you can't take your eyes off it. You can't take your eyes off good things, but this is one
Hmm.
of those icky, squicky ones. You're just like, yeah, no, don't just stop.
Hmm.
But that's also you can't take your eyes off of it.
Special the
So,
Hoshi one, because
oh, I know.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, it's
yeah,
so cold, and their relationship
yes,
is so warm usually, and yeah.
yes, yeah. Great pick.
All right, so after that, let's go to some more positivity. What's your second pro tonight?
It's a Travis pick.
Yay!
I'm so glad that he's the one that figures out that the catwalk offers shelter from the wisps. And it was great to be back in that catwalk
Oh yeah.
set. Like it felt like coming home. We'd only spent one episode there, but I guess I enjoyed that episode so much. It was nice to come back there because I had good memories of that episode, the catwalk, but also continuity feels
Yeah.
good. It makes the ship feel realer. when you're seeing these other places more than once,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciated seeing the whole crew back in the catwalk, and that's it. And that Travis was part of that. That's my pick.
I have to say, my notes literally say Travis figures out the catwalk with 4 exclamation points after it.
Yeah.
And then my next one just says in all capitals, catwalk with 3 exclamation points after it. Like, yes, that is so much fun. And I love that they're getting use out of that set. And I love that they're seeing it as a practical alternative. Like, they left some of that stuff so that if they needed another emergency bridge, they could have it there. Like, that's amazing. Amazing. I do wonder at the end if, impulse engines are ready to go and they're warmed up, if they're not fried in there. But that was just.
Well, impulse engines are not in the warp nacelles.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
It would only
They're
be
on
warp
the little
engines.
pod.
Okay.
Right? So we're
See,
okay with it.
you've solved everything. That makes it
There
even
you
better.
go.
Because I was
There
like,
you
oh,
go.
I don't want them to get fried or forget they were supposed to be. But yeah, I love that set. I love that it's Travis. I love that he knew exactly what to do. Like, yeah, that's a great moment. And I have to say that my almost was my view screen on pick for this was Travis crawling up the catwalk ladder Jeffrey's tube. Like, that's a cool shot. And it just gets you back in the cramped feeling of being on the catwalk again.
Okay, and as you're watching him climb up that ladder, and you're seeing the wisp move through bulkheads and walls and stuff like that. I love how the wisp doesn't just pass through it; it has to like come to a fine point and then push through bulkheads, which was a choice. And I like that choice. It's a small little detail because in TNG and other shows, we see these like entities just kind of float through, not have to show any effort to get through something.
Exactly.
Effort. But in this case,
you're awesome.
I cannot say that word ever without doing that, at least in my head. With you and on this podcast, I'm going to say it out loud. But if anyone doesn't know what that is, go watch The Most Toys on TNG.
You won't be sad. It's a fabulous 45 minutes of life.
It's a trek for all time.
Sure is.
It's on my list to do someday. But I love that those wisps have to exert effort and like just zero in into a pinpoint of space to get through, tunnel through almost, and chase him. And you expect them to show up when he closes the hatch in the catwalk for them to show up. And that was the nice surprise for me. I didn't expect them not to be able to go through that. And when they didn't, I was like, oh yeah, it's specially shielded. And it's rewarding the viewer for paying attention. This is that light continuity that we experience in everyday life. Everyday life, we have all these little connections. It's not the huge overarching arcs that we experience every single day necessarily. It's these little moments of continuity. And I just loved having that little reward of the catwalk and Travis.
Well, and I have to say, talking about light continuity, one of the things that I thought after I watched this one a couple times again was back to Dead Stop and the station that knew what they wanted and adapted to them. I mean, they get sucked into the ship and they go out in their EV suits and then they're like, huh, somebody knows what we like to breathe. And it's like Florida in November. Like, and I'm like, could these be the entities that created the Dead Stop station? Like, they could be, they could or could have been. And like that connection of another automated something or another place just kind of knows. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And that could be completely headcanon, but I just I like that they're doing that kind of stuff now. It's a beautiful thing to see Enterprise referring back to itself. We say that over and over again, and it's only going to get better as further on. And that's one of the fun parts about living in this universe.
That's why canon matters.
Exactly.
So what's your next pro?
Okay, so I am going to give my next pro to Archer's log, which is a very short chunk in there. It gets interrupted, but I like how he's talking out loud about how these wisps have no mass and they're so different. And T'Pol says he should keep an open mind and they're doing good stuff so far. And he hates to think that he would be suspicious of them just because they are so very different. And I think that comes after the scene we'd already talked about in the mess hall, where the possessed wisped Trip says to him, keep an open mind, call yourself an explorer. And he really is. And I
Mhm.
like that because his gut is telling him something is wrong. And as much as I wish his gut had been wrong and they had taken this
Mm.
entirely differently for the second half of the
Mhm.
episode, he was right, but he was not afraid to stop and examine himself and his own prejudices
Uh-huh.
and make sure that they weren't impacting his judgment and his choices. And I think that that's a powerful thing to see, that he's not just a leader who makes up his mind and goes with his gut. He really is taking in not just the people he trusts, but the people, I mean, these aliens he's never met. He's thinking about what this alien said. He really is. And that's a nice moment of Jonathan Archer in this episode.
Now that the doctor's given Trip a clean bill of health, my primary concern is getting Enterprise out of here.
But Trip tells me it'll be a while before he can get the engines online. From what we can tell, these life forms have no mass. Non-corporeal beings. That's got to be a first for Starfleet. T'Pol thinks they just want to get to know us. Maybe she's right. Maybe I don't trust them because they're so different. I'd hate to think that was the case. Computer pause. Come in.
Well, I have an onomatopoeia.
Ooh.
Ruff. Ruff, ruff.
Okay. I like that one. Well, then we'll just pin that as well. We got a lot of pins in our brains tonight, so we will come back to that one. All right. Well, let's move on then. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Phlox-centric. Is yours too?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, mine is a list of Phlox stuff, so feel free to jump in anytime.
All right.
I love how active Phlox is in the resolution of this whole conflict.
Yeah.
He is the hero, and he's not exactly excelling in everything he's trying to do, and that's fun. He's not getting frustrated, but he's taking direction from his crewmates, doing all these engineering tasks in the EV suit, which is fun. I love that he does come to Archer to report the disturbing experience.
Yep.
And that's when his log is interrupted. I love the team up with T'Pol as they're surveying the crew and scanning, right, in the mess hall.
Yep.
I could watch it in a whole episode with them doing detective work together.
Me too.
Oh my goodness.
Or just doing science, like walking around doing cool sciencey stuff.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the Phlox Hoshi fight. I'm glad I brought you along. That little
Oh my God,
the
that moment is
hypospray.
perfect. And he's all rumpled and his hair is like must and his shirt's a little off kilter. Yeah.
And then finally the grand finale, for me at least, is I've used every muscle I've got.
See, my favorite is after he gets off the hatch and then he's like, all right, it's off. Where should I put it? And there's this pause, and Archer's like, I don't know, on the floor. It's so Phlox, because when you're doing things medically, you don't just take something off or out and lay it around like you might with an engineering tool. It's such a little thing. And I love that when they're telling him, go around 2 times this way, and that you can see him mouthing and counting along to the directions. Like it's just tons of little details with that, and like he's just so aggravated at the end of it all. Like when Tucker's like, everything was great and there were more ribs than I'd ever seen, and he's like, yeah, we got doors to unlock, come on, breathe in, breathe out, you're fine. Like this has been a long day for Phlox, because this takes place in just a very short chunk of time. I mean, this isn't like they've been doing this for weeks or anything. This intensifies quickly. So I just imagine him thinking, God, and I haven't even gotten around to the morning feedings and it's already the evening. And his menagerie is just chirping away. But yeah, this is kind of a sneaky Phlox episode. And I really like that. I really like that they worked him into all the different parts of the plot and that he was essential again, and that both he and Paul help save the day by being not human again. And that's just that
Mm,
little bit of difference that
mm.
keeps them that much safer or being able to repel them. And it's just, I love Flocks. Bring on more Flocks. I mean, we could do a whole animated series of Flocks adventures and they could be a different tone every single one. And I love it because I love
That's true.
fun Flocks. I love annoyed Flocks. I love serious Flocks. I love Dr. Flocks. I love friend Flocks. I love hungry Flocks. I love movie loving Flocks. Like, you name it.
Hibernation.
Yes, hibernation Flocks. Exactly. Like daddy Flocks, husband Flocks. Like, they're all fantastic. So,
Well, which is why
yeah.
stigma is such a strength, because you see all
Yes.
these aspects of Flux. You know, as you were saying all of that, I was thinking, I was like going through a checklist. Man, every character had a lot more than to do than usual. Even
Mm-hmm.
Travis,
Mm-hmm.
probably 20 lines, you know,
Yeah.
maybe a little less, but a lot of lines. And they were spread out throughout the episode, not just concentrated. So like he's keeping track of Trip in the catwalk at later on, and he's like reporting back and kind of being the eyes and ears for everyone in that catwalk, managing the catwalk and the personnel. So that was really interesting. And of course, like you said, it's a kind of a Flocks episode, but it's really an everyone episode. It's the crew
Yeah.
episode. The only thing that's not really, like, we didn't get a lot of actual Hoshi.
Yeah.
We got
Little bits here and there, but yeah, lots of wispy Hoshi.
we got a little bit of Reed, but a lot of rapey Reed.
Yes.
So love Flocks. What was your pick?
That was mine too.
That was
My
your
third
pick too?
pro
Okay.
was how this was a sneaky Flocks episode. It really
Love it.
was. Like, and I've got all these little I've started color coding as I go through my notes trying to put stuff together, and like all this light green that ended up being Flocks this time was everywhere. Oh, but one thing I hadn't mentioned, but I have to now because it is just so me. We talked about the food. We're going to talk about this costume. I love the fact that the buttons on Flox's tunic top, he's got one at the top and then the long seam, and then there's three, like, kind of by where his pockets are around his hip area, and then it goes. It is such a cool minor detail, but it's just that little bit of like floxy flair, and I just appreciated. For some reason, I went back like 3 times in this one scene when he's coming in with Hoshi, and you can see those pockets because he's got the hypo spray in it, and I'm just like, that's just so cool. I love the small attention to detail in the Enterprise costumes, and Flox gets some of the most fun because he has more variety. So I really
Yes.
like when you see all those little details in there.
And then he gets action.
Yeah.
We know he's very proficient in sickbay. He has all these degrees, and it's all muscle memory when he's doing surgery and all this stuff. That's why, like, he doesn't have the muscle memory for engineering. Even though you would think it's like fine, detailed, work, it's just different. And that's cool to see our characters, especially Phlox, out of their comfort zone. All right, let's move on to the decons, parts of the episode that just didn't gel with us all the way. Abby, let's start with you this time.
Okay, so we already talked about how I wish they had taken this episode in a different direction. I wish it had ended up being aliens looking to explore, but that's a story choice. So I'm going to leave that one go. That wasn't what they were looking for here. That's fine. I prefer my Trek with more hope, but life goes on. All right. First of all, every single time we see T'Pol's dumb pajamas, it just bothers me, and I'm just like, I'm talking about costume details. They're so detailed in making sure that you can see as much of the outline and tightness on her chest as possible.
Okay.
They have a little dart behind her neck
Yes.
to make it tighter, and I'm just like, that is attention to detail, but not the kind that I like. So T'Pol's dumb pajamas.
Yeah, can I just comment on that real quick? Because that really stood out to me this time. And I like a beautiful woman. I do. But I'm married, and I know that I don't think many women, when they're in their pajamas, are as supported as she was. Supported and very defying gravity. Let's just say
Mhm.
that. In her
Well,
pajamas, relaxing at night. Is that a Vulcan mentality? Like
I
it was just ridiculous.
hmm And as much as we've talking about how they must have those built-in anti-gravity bras in all of their outfits, nobody's wearing a bra like that to bed. Like nobody
No,
wants to wear that anyway. So,
no.
and those are not even comfortable. All those buttons down the front. I mean, maybe she only sleeps on her back, but pajamas should be soft all over. Buttons just poke you, and like her hip bones are sticking out. And I'm just like, these. I would
Yeah.
prefer her in like a Vulcan robe. Like this would
Yeah,
be the perfect
that's what
time
would
for
make
a
sense.
Vulcan robe. Yeah,
Absolutely. Mhm.
yeah.
And you could
But
still look good in a robe. I mean,
1,000,000,000%.
yeah, let's do that.
Vulcan fashion and I are, good buddies. So yeah, she could wear a very cool embroidered Vulcan robe, or even just like a little sleeveless like night thing, like whatever. Like it. That's not. Ugh. Anyways, thanks UPN in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But okay, so I have three more, and two are silly, and one is more just a plot point. So Travis, poor Travis, who I love that he has a moment to shine here, but he took a punch straight to the face and doesn't look any worse for the wear. Like he took a punch from Trip straight to the face, enough to knock him down long enough for Trip to get away. And when he comes in later, he's like not even puffy. There's no blood. There's no, and I'm like, we know they can do punch in the face makeup. We have seen it so many times in the season and 2/3 that we're at now. He could have had a little something. Like that's just nitpicky me.
Mm.
And then I wish there was one more shot at the end of this. Kind of, and I think it's because I was thinking about Dead Stop, about how the station starts to rebuild
Ah,
itself. How different would this have ended if instead of just Fox picking up, disoriented Trip, who is still hungry, by the way, after he has just eaten like all that needs, all he can talk about is how wonderful the ribs are. Dude, you just got stuffed by this entity with like 7 meals. How are you hungry? But anyways, instead of just Flax walking him off to unlock doors, if we had had a pull-out shot and you see the wreckage and you see a couple of those little wisps like floating around in bubbles or something, like just they survived and they're still coming, like that could have been such a different tone ender and it would have made this a better episode. So I get annoyed when episodes just end and it doesn't feel like there was an ending. It was just the end.
you're right.
And I want to know, here's my big one. How is Trip still taking over? Like, when did this happen? How long was he wisped
Mhm.
and nobody happened to notice? Because he doesn't play it off that he's Trip. I mean, even though they've switched like what 4 times at that point, he's not good enough to pretend to care about Malcolm and stuff when he's wisped. So when did that wisp get him?
Exactly. Yeah. That's completely not accounted for in the story.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, plot, but
I bet there was a scene. I
there
bet it
might
was
have
there,
been.
but it had to be cut for time or whatever, but yeah, that's definitely a little hole that it didn't hurt the story for me, but it was a detractor, a decon.
Exactly. And this is, say what you want about streaming. At least streaming has more flexibility about time. And if they would have needed one 40-second scene or whatever of this happening, it would have made the episode so much better.
I mean, all you really needed was him climbing up the ladder. And just like they
Yeah.
did with Reed, you just
Yep.
kind of like, as he climbs up the ladder, out of his head out of frame, you hear the sound effect.
Yep.
Boom, that's it. Right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Well, coulda, woulda, shouldas, 20
Mhm.
years in the future. So,
Mhm, mhm.
all right. What's on your list, Chris? What are your decons tonight?
Well, it's a line from Rapey Reed.
Ugh.
I'd like to learn more about your anatomy.
Ugh, it's so icky.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Ugh. Yeah.
And the actress didn't act disgusted enough. I think,
Yeah.
at first I can see be like, what? But then there should have been like, sir, or I'll punch him in the face or something,
Uh-huh.
like I was waiting for something like that. Like, let's take him out.
Yeah.
She's just like, bye. And she just leaves like, what? She doesn't
Yeah.
report him. Like, where's
I'm hoping that's
HR
what she went and
on the
did.
ship? Where's HR?
Exactly.
Which I hope is like Hoshi. That would be good.
It would be good. She is the communications officer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if T'Pol as first officer is HR, that would be rough.
Yeah, people come to see her and she's wearing her nightie.
Or her judgment robes
Her
from
judgment.
Precious Cargo.
Hey, more judgment robes are okay.
Yes, that's true.
All the
Very
time.
true.
Yes. All right. My next one is a big one, and it's kind of like what you could have, should you? But as this episode ended, I was thinking very strongly about the line where the Wisps say, our ship's deteriorating, we need yours, we can't survive in space. So there's an aspect of this species, they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
This is out of fear, out of terror, and they're doing
Out
what
of
they
desperation.
can. Desperation. They're doing whatever they can to survive. And guess what? If they take over these human bodies, those humans will still survive as well.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I could see an argument on their side that maybe their plan is to take over for a while and hitchhike until they can do something. You know, there could have been something there. There could have been room for negotiation. Picard would be negotiating, we will repair your ship. We will allow you guys to take over this number amount of the crew and rotate your people in and out as we repair your ship, whatever. I'm sure there could have been some kind of accommodation. And then Picard learns, or Archer learns, you know what? I was right to be suspicious, but also I should keep open this willingness to continue pushing to be open and finding that solution and the common ground that they just want to survive. We get that. We'll help you survive.
Well, and it makes me think about connecting back to Michael Burnham and her mother, and they're talking about reasons matter.
Reasons matter. Yep.
Reasons matter. And that is something that always bothers me about the end of this episode, because is this an entire species that we just decimated? Like, are there more of them somewhere floating around on a different ship? Is there a planet of them somewhere? Like, they said they evolved past, like, oh my God, was that just genocide? Like, it was obviously self-preservation, but
there was no attempt to negotiate. There was no attempt to make first contact appropriately. Of course, this is still like early Starfleet, but this is just, we've seen Archer do better.
Yeah.
And the crew do better. So it didn't feel like very Star Trek there. It felt like we vanquished the bad guys.
But this makes me think again about that connection back to Dead Stop, where we see Archer going from suspicious to angry to active, and it's such a good build. And in this one, he just came in suspicious and angry without having that open mind as much of a balance. I wish they had done more of that, because I think it would have made it a better episode, and it would have been more consistent with what we see with Archer.
Well, and yes, and what's the message?
Right.
Sometimes if it is different, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true.
Exactly.
But there was no showing the other side.
No.
There was no negotiating. There was no debate. There was just that one moment between T'Pol and Archer, and T'Pol says, we don't know their motives. We don't, she's saying the Starfleet value, kind of questioning there. And Archer's like, no, this is fishy. Something doesn't smell all right. And so that's cool. I want more of that. But the message in this episode is different is bad and dangerous.
Yeah.
And there's nothing redeeming in these guys.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It feels like this one, and even like we were saying the last episode with Canamar, where they were escaping the prison ship, these feel the most to me like they could have been almost plugged in and out of other shows. And again, you would have to change this from being taken over by this. It could be any type of magic or whatever. But it just doesn't feel as Star Trek-y, and it feels like they just wanted to put some action in the back half of this season. So they got a couple, ones that you had that got your blood pumping, and that's fine. There's nothing inherently awful about these again, but they're just kind of after we've had some really, really stellar, connective, deep thinking treks, these ones are just kind of that you had 26 episodes, not all of them are going to be stellar. And that's okay.
Well, and even think like connect to observer effect. I know we're jumping forward.
Right.
There's a debate between the Organians about what to do. And there's a good resolution in then there. Well, we could have had a debate, with negotiation between the aliens and Archer and the crew about whether let us repair your ship, let's find a different way. And then ultimately the majority of the aliens vote no, and then Archer is forced to defend himself and destroy their ship. That would still feel better. But you make every attempt, right? So anyway,
Yep.
I think I've hit on that enough. But I think it's just because that's a core Star Trek tenet that was completely not even attempted here. And it felt like you said earlier, it just ended without it resolved the major conflict without any denouement, no reflection on it. It just ended.
Yeah. Like I said, it wasn't an ending, it was just the end.
Yes.
Mind if we take a look? Prettiest set I ever saw.
So now after all of that, we have come to our newest section, the view screen on. So let's bring it back to the positives, because this is the section where we honor a beautiful shot or graphic from the episode that we want to highlight. So, Chris, why don't you start us off tonight? What did you find beauty in?
I love the interior of the alien ship, as I said, but specifically when the away team is walking around there, man, current modern Trek has the VR. No, is it the AR wall?
Yes.
That we see in Strange New Worlds and in Discovery, and it looks great. This looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Especially for the time, but like it didn't feel much different than the AR wall. So I really appreciated how they integrated the actors into this massive cavernous alien interior.
Yeah, that is such a cool looking ship. And I agree that it does feel like they're in one of those AR walls well before they existed. It felt deep. It felt different. The lighting was done an amazingly well. It just was so alien. And I love it too. Like what a great design. And that kind of flips right to mine, because my view screen on here is when they actually blow up the alien ship, which sounds horrible, but it's a gorgeous explosion. Like the ship is so dark and it's kind of almost like a honeycomb web. So when it starts to blow up, it starts with this like yellowish orange, and then it goes to red, and then you see the honeycombing of the fire, and then it breaks off into all these little pieces.
Yes.
And it's just, and the pieces are cool looking, and it looks like it really is what we saw inside there coming apart. And that is such a cool bit of continuity from the beginning to the end of the episode. And explosions are fine with me. They don't usually do it for me or not, but this one was really, really pretty. Definitely eye-catching.
Well, and yes, it was a really well-made explosion because it didn't happen in one burst. It crumbled and burst into different pieces, like you said, exactly like all the ship explosions in season 3 of Picard. All those ship explosions were done in the same detailed, multi-piece way, which seems more realistic and super detailed and just gorgeously put together. And I'm glad you picked that. So we have come to the time where we discuss our favorite parts for the episode, our Porthos pick. If our picks were mentioned already in the discussion, and mine was, we will expand a bit more here. And if they weren't, then we have a few more great moments to discuss. Abby, let's go into your Porthos pick first.
Okay, so I tried really hard not to make this my Porthos pick, but it is, because I have to say I'm giving some big props and shout outs to the EV suit costuming in this one. We see so many close-up shots of these suits. We see them working, we see them opening and closing. Phlox has got his helmet like cracked at some points and then closed. We see them getting in, we see them getting out, we see the gloves. Like, this is probably one of my favorite pieces of Trek costuming of all times are the Enterprise EP suits. They are gorgeous. And they actually made one for every one of the major cast members so that they could come in and out of them because they use them a lot. And like this episode just featured them so heavily and so many different people in them. And like I said, you get the details of the patches and all the little connections, and they look and feel functional. And the actors do such a good job. I know they were heavy as all get out, and they just killed after they were in them for any type of time to tape things. But
Yeah.
wow, they did a great job making them look like you had to be slow and heavy. And it was just such an Evie beautiful episode. I could not pass up calling them out as these suits being phenomenal.
Costume pick for Abby.
Like I said, who's surprised? And who's surprised about my food list before? So there we go.
No, it's a great pick, and I loved seeing Phlox in it too. You're right.
Yes.
And I have one, I think I've said this before, but I have one Star Trek action figure. It's Hoshi in the EV suit. That's it. And I love it because it's a great, great costume.
All right. So I think we need to pull out one of those pins we had talked about and go back to talking about Archer's log because you barked at us. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say in more depth about this one.
I mean, I don't know if I have a lot of depth. You said it really well, but I just really, clung on to that final line before Phlox interrupts him where he says, maybe I don't trust them because they're so different. I'd hate to think that was the case. That's a Star Trek moment.
Yeah.
That's one of the major questions of Star Trek, right? We want to seek out new life and new civilizations. Look for the different. Idic, right? So this is a moment where he's struggling with that impulse to seek out the new, but also his like more baser impulse to survive and distrust, right? So unfortunately, like we said, his impulse to survive and distrust was proven true. But I love that debate is happening with him, and he's self-reflective, like you said, of his own biases. He's exploring them before he makes any command decisions. That's a good captain. That's a good human.
Yeah. Well, and then for as much as I went on about Archer seems out of character in this episode, this is the moment he doesn't. This is the moment where we see the Archer that we have come to know and appreciate and see all this growth all the way back from, his first encounter with the Suliban and the Klingons until now. This is the moment where he's questioning everything. And this is where you see, how he's expanded his mind so much, but there's still so much more to go. And I think that's a good part of that lesson too. You always come back and check yourself. There is always room for growth. And you're right, it makes him not just a good person, but a good human. And like I said when I talked about it, this is a moment of Jonathan Archer. He's examining himself. He's not Captain Archer, he's Jonathan Archer. And I like that we've seen some of those Jonathan moments in these past few episodes. They might not have been my favorites, but they are definitely little standout moments where you see those kernels of really who makes Jonathan Archer and Jonathan Archer.
And, I love seeing a captain recording their log. We don't get that a lot, right? It's usually like voiceover with the ship, but I liked that being let into the intimacy of that moment is really cool.
And I like that he paces, because I do that all the time. Like if I'm not when I'm recording the podcast, but I have to stop myself, because if I'm just talking on the phone with somebody, I pace. Like I would do that if I was recording a log. That's just my natural way of working through things, is I have to be physically moving while I do it too. So I just think that's something you see. I mean, Melanie and I talked about this all the way back to the beginning of Enterprise, is when Archer has to work through something, he has to be moving, he has to be doing something. And you see that in just him pacing in this log. And I just think that's a cool little bit of character continuity too.
I love that because he's an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So his body is very important. Movement,
yep,
very important.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, and it helps him focus to move like that. And that's so valid. And you don't see that often portrayed as a positive thing. So I like that we see him being very physical with his manifestations of moving through his problems.
And I just want to correct something, not that it was an error, but you said that we've talked about Archer being out of character in this episode. I don't that's not how I've taken it. I say the show is out of character.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, I
Yes,
can't
that
fault
does make more
Archer
sense.
because the whole trajectory of the story was down this wrong path.
Yeah.
So it's not like one choice he made was wrong or something like, oh my gosh, Cisco just poisoned a whole planet. Like that was
Yeah.
a choice of character. This just seemed to be a misaligned story that didn't adhere to the tenets of Star Trek.
Yeah.
So like I can't even feel like, oh, Archer let me down. The episode let me down. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it just feels off. The whole thing.
Accessing library computer data.
Well, here on First Flight, we love trivia and behind the scenes information and tidbits. So we pick a few to share about each episode. And I have a good one to start tonight. It's kind of bittersweet because this is the third, but also final appearance of crewman Michael Rostov, who appeared twice during the first season. He's one of the ones who got sucked up by the big goo monster in Vox Sola.
Yeah.
And he's never seen again on screen after this episode, but he is mentioned at least twice in the third season. And he has a nice little feature here where he's, though I do
Yeah.
want to know, Rostov, when you called Archer and said he's acting strangely, why didn't you tell him he left engineering by way of Jeffrey's tube? Like,
Yeah.
that seems to be an important part. But I like that they kept this actor going. And I hope that the reason we didn't see him again was because he went on to something great, because I've always liked him in the little bits we saw him. So bravo, crewman Rostov.
Yeah, I enjoyed his performance. I enjoyed having a minor character having things to do. I always love having that. It really makes the crew and the ship feel real and lived in. So great trivia. My first trivia, I have two, couldn't help it. But my first trivia, you kind of already went there, like talking about how the catwalk might be demonstrating Starfleet's original concept of the battle bridge or an auxiliary control center. And I really like that idea, that this is setting up that idea in starship design, that you need to have a secondary place where you can control the ship besides engineering.
I'm gonna headcanon that this was all from Malcolm, and it was one of his, thousands of protocols. And not only
Yes.
did he start the red alert / read alert, is that he also is the one who invented force fields or made them work and got us battle bridges, because that is just Malcolm Reed right there.
Yeah. I mean, he would be the one calling it battle bridge.
Yes, he would.
Right.
And all of the alarms would be just like one notch higher down there.
Yes.
All right, what's your other one for us?
He might also be the reason that Tom Paris keeps a phaser under the con. Right?
It could be true. Didn't Ortegas have one too in Strange New Worlds?
I bet she does.
I'm pretty sure she does. So yeah. Well, bravo, Malcolm Reed. Again, you are good at your job.
Ortegas is at the helm, piloting the ship
Is
is
her realm.
Pilot seat is my realm. We're in a field surrounded. Still flight system steady. Impulse engines ready.
Look for some bonus material about that soon if you at all care to hear us gush about other Star Trek.
Yeah. While we do the calculus. So the other piece of trivia I had to say, because it connects with my picks, this episode was nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Special Visual Effects for a series, and we know why. That starship was awesome.
Yeah.
And the wisps were really complex little features. They weren't just like blobs of color.
Sparkles.
Like, they were really good. They were really
Yeah.
good and detailed, the way they moved and everything. So I appreciated that, and I'm glad that they were nominated.
Yeah, Star Trek so rarely gets any type of nomination, and most all of them are for things like this, technical or visual or makeup or costumes. But every nod is the validation that all of these people deserve, because we know that without all of our behind the scenes people, Trek would not be the glorious masterpiece that it is. So I'm glad when they get nominated too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one time Boimler dragged me to the Starship History Museum.
Dragged? You ran up to the doors.
No, I didn't. It was boring. I hated it. Anyway, so they had the NX-01 there, Archer's Enterprise.
Yeah, classic design. Plus it had, the grapplers.
Skip that part. They don't care.
I love grapplers.
See?
All right.
Well, it's time to give our final thoughts and our grappler ratings. We love grapplers. So, Abby, on a scale of 1 to 10 grapplers, how do you rate this episode?
Okay, so I wanted this to be so much more than it was. We've said it over and over again, the second half of this episode to go to a completely different way. However, the second half of this episode has all this flock stuff that I absolutely love. But the message of this episode is a bummer. But there's fantastic. I mean, I could keep going. We've had this debate for however long now. I don't want to rewatch this one all the time, but I think to myself, okay, I gave a 5.5 to Canamar last time because it felt like just generic action show. Which one would I rather watch more? And I'm like, the squicky parts of this one are so squicky, but I would probably rather watch this one more because at least I get my whole crew and some awesome Phlox moments. So I am giving this one a 6.0, 6 full grapplers for me, but it's mostly because Phlox pulls this one up for me so much. All right, your turn. What are you rating this one?
6.0.
Oh, look at us.
Yep. It is I enjoyed a lot of this episode. It's just how it comes together to not give any kind of message really, besides be scared of things that are different.
Yeah.
Right. So, it can't go higher than a 6, but I was really enjoying it for a lot of it, especially the wonder, like you said in the beginning, the possibilities, and then all the flock stuff was fantastic. Like you said, the ship design was really fun. Even that explosion was well executed. Archer reflecting, all that kind of stuff. And we get our whole crew and Travis in the catwalk. So there's so many good things about this that I couldn't go higher than a 6. But I couldn't go, I started at a 5.5 and I was like, no. And then I went up to a 6.5 and I took that last 0.5 away because of the message problem. But 6 sounds good to me. It's not terrible. It's just a little bit above meh. And I would watch it again, I think.
Yeah, it's not one that ever has stood out to me as being like, oh, I really don't like this one. But after thinking about it more, it's just not. I guess maybe it's more that I'm disappointed in it because it had so much potential, and I hope that by the time I do revisit this one again, some of that tinge of disappointment has worn off, and I can just enjoy the parts that I really do like about this, because there are some really good ones.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to seek it out to watch it on its own. Like, oh, I need Enterprise, I'll watch this one. But if I'm doing an Enterprise rewatch, I don't think I'll skip it.
Yeah, fair. All right, Chris. So before we finish up, let's get this on an upward trajectory and go through a quick recap of our pros for the crossing. Run us through all your picks.
Pick number 1, the whole mess hall scene of wonder with Wispy Trip and Travis's scowl. Number 2, not Travis. Sorry, Malcolm's scowl. Number 2, Travis discovers that the catwalk is shielded, protecting them from the wisps. Number 3 is everything Phlox. And then my view screen on is the interior of the alien ship. And my Porthos pick is Archer being so self-reflective, looking at his biases, whether he's not trusting the aliens because they're so different or not.
That's a good list. All right, let's run through mine before we're done here. My first one was the brilliant acting when people were taken over by the wisps and how you could tell just from the way they held themselves that they were taken over. My second pro was Archer's Log, that was your Porthos pick. And my third one again was everything Phlox, because Phlox is awesome. My view screen on again bookended yours wonderfully because it was the exterior of that wisp ship just blowing itself up into pieces, and my Porthos pick was my beloved EV suits.
I think we need to pause here and just say something about Jolene Blaylock's eye acting when she's taken over by the wisp.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was so hard for me to cut.
Yes, that was my next one.
But as she's like struggling internally, her eyes are starting to water, and there's just this subtle acting that is so good. So yeah, anyway, we have to say that.
Yeah, I was just listening to one of the last episodes of the Delta Flyers when they were talking about Endgame and about how welling up with tears and not letting them overflow is such a crazy skill for an actor, and it's really, really hard because once you let the tear go, like, you're done. Once you break that seal, they're just going to flow. They're not going to well up. So it's like you got a take, maybe two, if you don't actually let it out before that happens. And I went back and watched this episode after listening to that and was even more impressed. Like, Jolene Blaylock's face is incredible, and what she can do with it in the tiniest ways, just amazing.
Absolutely. Sorry, everyone. We had to throw a bonus pro at you, but had to.
Captain, I'm detecting a vessel closing on our position.
Columbia to Enterprise.
Greetings, Enterprise fans. This is Melanie transmitting from the NX-02 Columbia. On behalf of the Carrot crew, I want to extend a big congratulations to Abby and Chris on the 50th episode of First Flight. It's been such a treat to hear your thoughtful and deep insights, as well as humor that always makes me laugh. It's been really fun rewatching along with you, and I always look forward to your new episodes and really appreciate the sound bites and musical enhancements and all of that cool stuff that you put into it. Keep up the great work, and here's to the next 50. And to the First Flight community, thank you again for listening. And once again, it's been so wonderful to be able to share our joined fandom of Enterprise, which is such a terrific show that deserves so much love and respect. And it's just great to be able to talk about it and share the joy with other Enterprise fans. Well, it's time to adjust my heading, but hopefully I'll be in range soon to talk about one of my favorite episodes of Season 2, Judgment. And until then, live long and prosper. Columbia out.
My chronometer's running backwards, sir.
Incoming transmission.
You read my letter?
Well, we want to remind you that we adore getting feedback and thoughts from you listeners, as we hope you could tell from our last mailbag episode. And we had so much fun, and we always do, sharing all your discussions and insights and ideas. We've had chats on social media, and we are collecting again for our next mailbag episode, which is coming up very, very soon. So this is your call for any Grappler ratings, Porthos picks, general comments. Please get them into us so that you can be part of that mailbag episode fun.
Yes, please do reach out to us and share any thoughts or smiles that you have for us using the hashtag Carrot Crew. And someone messaged our account asking, I might have missed something, but what's this whole Carrot Crew thing about? So go back to, if you don't know, go back to our episode covering Dead Stop, which has been referenced a few times, and you will find out. And also check out our last mailbag episode where we go in depth about how the Carrot Crew conversation has just been contorting our conversation on Twitter. So, speaking of Kara Crew, we have been together for 50 episodes as of today.
Whew.
Abby, you did
That's
a lot
unbelievable.
more of those than I have, so congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful. And please let me shout out Melanie, our co-host emerita, who was the founding member of this podcast and always a part of our Carrot Crew. She still calls in once in a while from Colombia, and there would be no podcast without her. So thank you, everyone, for listening to me and Chris and Melanie and everybody talk Enterprise for 50 episodes. That's incredible.
And by the way, our first audience is always Melanie. We send it to her first. She gives us our first feedback. Like, she is still part of the Carrot Crew on this side of the mic. So we just love Melanie, and we love hearing from you guys. And we can't wait to do it for 50 more.
Yeah, for sure.
So with that said, reach out to us. Give us your thoughts. Hashtag Get Carrot Crew. You can find us on Twitter or X at First Flight Pod, Instagram at First Flight Pod as well, and then Facebook as well. We're also on YouTube under the Tricorder Transmissions Network. You can also reach me at Shelf Nerds on Twitter and on my own YouTube channel, Completing the Shelf, where you can find me talking a lot about Star Trek. Abby, where can we find you?
So the best place to find me is still Twitter or X or whatever it's called when this drops. I'm there most often. I've dipped my toe into some other socials, but I just don't have time to cross-post as much as I want to. So wherever everyone ends up, I will end up. But for now, I'm sticking it out till it's completely dead.
I am on Blue Sky now.
Yes, I am on Blue Sky as well, and I am hoping to get the pod there by the time this drops. So that would be awesome. But the best place to find me is still whatever the platform is called, Twitter, X, etc., at Abby M. Summer, and that's SOMMER.
Well, we want to thank you for spending this time with us, 50 times of this time. We'll be back next time with our second mailbag episode, but actually, before our mailbag, we have a bonus episode where we're just gonna like celebrate and pause all the amazing Star Trek things that have happened in August of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Abby's been on a camping trip for like a little over half a month, and we haven't been able to talk about things. And usually these kind of extra Star Trek things that don't have to do with Enterprise Go and our buttons, but we were like, well, that's gonna be like an hour and a half button. So let's just do a bonus episode. So stay tuned. We're going to have a bonus episode where we just gush about Strange New Worlds and Prodigy, extra scenes that have been launched at different conventions. So it's going to be a fun time where we're just talking Star Trek, the larger Star Trek universe, and what's been going on in August. And then after that will be our second mailbag episode where we celebrate you and how you're contributing to the Carrot Crew. So, as always, we will leave you with this quote from Captain Jonathan Archer and your moment of Melanie.
The most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that bind us, all of us, to each other.
So my wife watched the musical and she's like, oh, that was fun. And, my kids every day, they're like, oh, guess which song was in my head all day? That kind of thing.
That's what happened to me, too. Just today, before we came up, we were in the basement cleaning stuff up because we're having younger kids come. And I'm like, we got to pick up the Legos, guys.
Oh, yeah.
The littles are going to eat it. And so I'm like, let's put some music on. And Ellie's like, can we listen to the Star Trek musical? And I'm like, which one? And at the exact same time, she goes, the one with I'm Okay Solo. And Lila goes, the one where the lady gets the new job.
To my kids, it's the one where the lady dumps Spock.
Oh, that's funny.
But as I was saying, like, my wife starts asking all these questions. Why is she dumping him? And I'm like, well, so like the other night, all right, if I could make a mini connective trek, trek thread rewatch for her that leads up to Subspace Rhapsody, what would it be? So this is what it would and is, and I might do this. We'll see. Memento Mori.
Mm-hmm.
Spock Amok, of course.
Yep.
All Those Who Wander.
Yep.
Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Yep.
Charades.
Yep.
And Subspace Rhapsody, and then Hegemony. Hegemony.
Well, it depends. Are you British?
Ways.
Yes. Hegemony is how April says it, and I guess it's the American way, and the other way is the British/Scottish/Irish way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I was thinking. But then I thought, oh, it would be cool to just do Gorn episodes. I love how there's these just mini arcs throughout the seasons now that you can just plug in a few. Anyway, I'm sorry. We're getting into the episodes.
No, I know. Well, okay. When you go back, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but Melanie and I had a little exchange about something that we both thought that connected, like both of us both went, ooh, that's a Voyager connection. Did you have a Voyager connection in this one? Like a visual.
I can't say it now. Hegemony.
Yeah.
What was it?
It's when Spock and Chapel are holding hands in the EV suits. Yeah, just like Tom and B'Elanna, we were both just like, oh my god, and you could still see the reflection in the helmets. Like that was always my favorite part of that, is the reflection in the helmet. And then they had Spock and Chapel had reflections in their helmet, and she's like, oh my god, did you think that? I'm like, of course I did, brain twin.
I don't think I consciously did, but I really do think I subconsciously did.
Yeah. When you watch it again, you'll just it's immediate. Like I'm waiting for York to put it up someday.
Yeah. What an episode.
Well, maybe this can be our button. Like this is the preview. If you like listening to this, we're gonna record the next one in a couple days after we've had even more time to marinate on everything.
That's true, because I've only seen that episode once. So I look forward to doing that.
Did you see the tweet from the person who texted us about the Carrot Crew about how they listened to 5 episodes of First Flight back to back while editing their dissertation? And I was just like, holy cow, that's a lot of us talking at one time.
Yeah.
Wow. And started with Precious Cargo, of all things. Like, I'm assuming that's just where they had left off listening and they didn't just start with Precious Cargo, but who knows? The wonky ones always get the most views on YouTube and the most downloads, so...
But like usual, I think we have fun talking about all of those episodes.
Exactly.
So even this one, this one had a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Well, they always do. There's always something.
You know what? This is a rare episode where we didn't pick T'Pol. But everyone else got picked.
Yeah. I know. And I thought about picking her face acting, and I was just like, oh, we talk about that all the time. So I was going for other things, but like
it was either that or my Travis pick. And I felt when we wound up in the catwalk, I got so happy that I had to do that.
I know. It's wonderful. I like it when something happens that I've forgotten, because there's a lot of the episodes I like the best I've watched so often that I don't forget stuff in them. So some of these ones that I haven't watched as often, I forget little bits, and it's so exciting because it feels new.
Yeah. No new Star Trek tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
I know, but just a couple of weeks.
I want to do Picard season 3 before Lower Decks. That's my goal.
I did all of Lower Decks before I left at the end of July, but that doesn't take that long,
Yeah.
And so
I wound up just this week in a season 2 rewatch of that series.
I think I might, and I have to, I want to do a full 4-season Discovery rewatch again before it comes back out. But I'm like, you know what? That's going to be January at the earliest. And I just did it, but I want to do it again, like, and then segue it in.
Yeah.
And that one takes longer than because they're full hours a lot of the times.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking,
and they're heavier, right?
Yes.
It is harder to do more.
Yes. You're not going to do like 3 in a row unless it's the exact right 3 in a row. And
sure.
Yeah. But I kind of want to do Lower Decks again because like it's just so much end of summer energy for me there, and it wouldn't take long. But I also want to do both seasons of Strange New Worlds all the way through.
Me
and
too.
Picard all the way through again. So like those are my next chunks, I believe.
I want to do TOS. Like I've been watching a bunch of TOS lately and loving it. Even being uncomfortable with the enemy within, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of that episode's good. I watched The Naked Time, which is an episode that I don't like. I loved it.
It's fun. I like that one.
It's not just fun, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole time travel thing, time warp at the end. I'm like, where did that come from? Wow, this is the first time that happens. That's what I love about TOS. It's like going back in time and honoring your roots. And like, oh, that's the first transporter malfunction. And they use the phrase.
Yeah, I know. It's so cool. It's fun. I had like a TOS summer probably 3 summers ago at this point. And like, I got so sucked into all of the like old makeup and stuff and like how much eyeshadow they always have on and why that was, and like read a whole bunch of stuff into that, and it was just so fun. It was really fun to go back and revisit all that future history.
Years ago, I finally just broke down and bought the Blu-rays of all 3 seasons. And this was when my wife was a nurse in the neuro ICU. So she would have 12, tough stuff. She would have 12-hour shifts. So I'd come home from school and I put another episode of TOS in. And what I loved about it was every episode you had no idea what was coming. They were all so different. And that was just kind of exciting. And in this world where, I was watching a lot of Breaking Bad, where it's all relentlessly the same story, which I love. Breaking Bad is a masterpiece, but it was so cool to get that, and that's what we've gotten with Strange New Worlds. It's so fun to get that kind of thing, but the emotional continuity is so strong too.
Exactly. Well, and it's nice because you can have, like, I love Discovery. I love how smart it is and how it has taken so much out, but like sometimes, like we were just saying, you're not in the mood for that. You need something you're not going to go back and say, oh, I really want to watch Choose Your Pain that often. Like, well, maybe because
there's an unrelenting intensity about Discovery that's different than any other show.
Yes. Like if you want something on in the background, it's probably not Discovery because it's just intense and focused and all that. And I love that Strange New Worlds has, like, if I'm feeling like I want something gritty, I have it. If I want something fun, I have it. If I want something that's going to make me cry, if I want something that's a love story, if like there's just, the variety is nice.
Yeah. And all right, one more comment from me at least. New Eden.
Yes.
When Pike talks about his dad, that completely just connected to my last rewatch of Those Old Scientists when he talks about his dad. And I want more. Because we had no idea that he was kind of estranged from his dad in New Eden, but it makes sense based off of the tension in the house, being an interesting childhood. He makes that comment. That just fascinated me, and I wanted more. And that didn't stand out as much the last couple times I watched Those Old Scientists, but last night it really did.
I hadn't made that connection. That is brilliant. That better be in this button. Because that's
it's in the button, but I want it might end up being a micro track or something, because it's been sitting in my head today, like,
absolutely.
I hope they develop that more.
Yeah for sure.
My brother does not like Star Trek. He refuses to watch it. Like, I'm like, oh, can you watch 2009? You know, this might be, nope. The whole family, we're all watching it together. He was like, I'm just going to go in another room. I'm not doing Star Trek. I'm like, okay, you're a nerd.
Fine.
Anyway, but he asked me one day, what's your favorite Star Trek? I'm like, well, that's a hard question. It
Yes.
changes. But, and he's like, okay, what's the best Star Trek? I'm like, Deep Space Nine. That question's easy.
Well,
but it might change
I don't
now.
know.
It might change
exactly.
now. That was a couple years ago. So
yeah.
What would you say now then? On the top of your head, the best made Star Trek.
I would say that it's unfair to judge something until it's complete.
Sure.
Because you do not know, and especially with modern Star Trek, these writers have plans, and whether or not they actually come to fruition the way that they want to is one thing.
Especially with a strike.
Correct. But I would say that right now, the first 2 seasons of Strange New World are rivaling. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
And it's reaching so many people and places all over the place. But I won't judge it until it's done, because there's so much to get through. And like, it was funny, the first time I was on Trek Ranks, Jim asked me this, and I went on for probably 3 minutes about, well, you know, when I just want comfort food, I tend to go here, and I think this is the best made, but this is my favorite. And like, I have such a love for Enterprise. It is not the best Trek, but it is so important to me.
Oh yeah.
You know, that it is probably way up higher than so many other people's, and all the seasons, not just 3 and 4, because it was so impactful and meaningful to me in that point in my life when it was first on.
Season 2 is really good.
Season 2 is really good. There are some really good moments. There are some duds, but you know,
there's more than good moments. Like, I think the ratio is higher, more towards really good episodes.
I think so too. And I think they started finding their footing with all the characters.
Yeah.
So I think our season 2 look back is going to be really awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say Deep Space Nine as a full package is the best made.
Yes.
Although there's a lot of weakness in it too.
Yes, and there's a lot of things that even looking back now, like you can still say some of this didn't age as well as we hoped it would. There are definite moments of that. Like, Quark is real icky in some moments, in ways you're like, Quark, really? I know you're a Ferengi, and I know we love you, and you really are a good guy, but
Yeah, my sister has said something like I can't watch that show with the Ferengi guy. I just can't take it. I'm like, but he's a great character. And you have some place to go because he starts that way. Yeah. Out of all the new Treks, the modern Treks, I'd say Prodigy is the tightest.
Yes. And again, I think after Prodigy season 2, that could very well be the best out there. Because when you hear about all the teases and everything, but again, I haven't seen it yet. So I'm just assuming that all these connections, and I am trusting Aaron Welke, who's saying,
oh yeah,
I just saw something that put 57 years of Trek together and connected something that has never been connected before.
Can't wait.
Like, I'm dying. So I think it has potential, but again, it's not fair until it's done.
Our idea for another podcast could just be watching Prodigy because it satisfies the premise of the podcast.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. All right. We have a sufficient normal size button here.
Yeah, we do. That's for sure. All right, so let's end this on an upward trajectory. That I can start that again and not trip over the word trajectory.
Spatial trajector.
Exactly.